Good morning, everybody. I am Caley Johnson. I'm a fuel and vehicle market analyst at NREL, and I'm here to talk today about incorporating transportation in community strategic energy plans. So what I'd like to cover today starts out foremost with why should community energy plans include transportation? Then I'll go on to challenges to incorporating transportation into these energy plans. I'll cover methods for overcoming transportation's challenges, and finally, I will show you some resources to help you address transportation in your community energy plans. So the primary question is, why should local initiatives include transportation? And the big answer is that transportation is generally responsible for one-third of energy use. That is an average overall in the United States, and that's also an average that rings true in some of the local island projects that I've worked on. Another reason to include transportation in the community action plans is that transportation offers some very low-hanging fruit. You can save a lot of fuel, reduce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions for some pretty cheap costs, and in many cases they can be cost positive, where you end up saving a lot more than you spend. An example of some of this low-hanging fruit is what commuters did by themselves on their own volition during the 2008 oil price spike. I don't know if you guys remember the summer of 2008 when oil prices and gasoline prices just skyrocketed. Most communities were caught off guard and didn't offer a lot of directions for how commuters could save costs, and yet commuters really found a lot of cost savings. They automatically found these low-hanging fruits, and that's what is shown in the chart to your left. So of the commuters that did take action in response to the expensive gasoline prices, the most popular action to take was to rideshare. That's just carpool. People have been doing it for years and years, and yet these days rideshare and transportation rideshare and carpooling isn't very common. The vast majority of people drive to work alone in their own car. So that's one example of of low-hanging fruit, and I will get in further slides. I will show you ways that rideshare can be encouraged and become part of a systemic transportation plan. 33% of people that responded to the high gasoline prices in 2008 telecommuted. That's both in working from home and avoiding meetings by doing teleconferencing. A third of the people also purchased a more efficient car. Less than a third looked for a closer job. So you can just see these are some examples of the low-hanging fruit that people take when incentivized. And the chart on the right is also another also displays some low-hanging fruit. And what this displays is that you can save a lot more gasoline and carbon dioxide emissions by improving fuel economy from inefficient vehicles than you can from improving fuel economy from efficient vehicles. For example, if you improve fuel economy just 1 mile per gallon from 50 to 51 miles per gallon, that's a very small percentage change, and it's the percentage change that makes the difference. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if you've improved fuel economy on a Suburban from 12 to 13 miles per gallon, that's a much larger percent change, and therefore translates to a much larger energy savings and greenhouse gas emission savings. And so, I've mentioned some of the many opportunities that are low-hanging fruit in transportation. Another reason to include transportation in your local energy initiative is that transportation offers many popular, high-profile co-benefits. Foremost among these is reducing traffic and saving time. That that's something that members of any community really like, and it's something that all politicians like. And another high-profile co-benefit is you can improve your air pollution a lot by addressing transportation, because transportation is emitting, unlike electricity generation, transportation is emitting right in the heart of your cities. It's emitting right where people are breathing, so it is the primary cause of urban air pollution in the U.S. Another high-profile co-benefit is that it gives you resiliency against volatile petroleum prices. Transportation is more closely linked with oil prices and petroleum prices than electricity generation or say natural gas to heat buildings, and therefore, if you use less, if you improve the efficiency in your transportation, then it essentially reduces the cost swings that your businesses and your community will see as the volatile petroleum prices go up and down. And finally, the final co-benefit for addressing transportation is that it increases access for vulnerable populations. If you have the handicapped, a good, efficient transportation system should include mass transit, and that's a godsend for handicapped people. It really enables them a lot more mobility. And likewise for the poorest populations and communities, a good, efficient transportation system gives them mobility that they don't see in communities that don't have good, efficient transportation systems, because a lot of the poorest populations can't afford their own cars to drive on our highways, which happens to be the least efficient mode of transportation in a community. So why should local initiatives include transportation? Vehicle projects offer quicker progress because turnover rates are about 16 years for the average vehicle, and that's quicker than buildings or power plants. So if you're looking to make an efficiency improvement in a building or a power plant, you might need to wait a long time until that power plant needs to be replaced, let's say. Whereas if you're looking to improve the efficiency in transportation, you don't have to wait as long for a vehicle to need to be replaced. And large potential savings from vehicle replacement policies and projects, because of corporate average fuel economy standards, ensure that future vehicles will be more efficient. So essentially, the corporate average fuel economy standards are that that's what the chart at the bottom of slide 4 is. That is the requirement that all auto manufacturers increase their efficiency of the average fleet. That's including all light-duty vehicles. And so you can see that from 1978 up to about 84, the average fuel economy of the light-duty vehicles in the U.S. Increased quite a bit, and then it just flatlined from about 1984 to 2008. And then in 2009, the new standards were put in place, or they were adjusted, so the average new vehicle being sold in the U.S. is greatly increasing every year. And so what that means is that we have a lot of really cool, more efficient, high-technology vehicles available that when you're looking to replace any given vehicle, chances are every couple of years you're going to have a whole new platter of options of much more efficient vehicles to replace it with. And so that essentially just provides a lot of opportunity for swapping out vehicles and improving your efficiency in your fleet and reducing your energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. So I've covered all of the great opportunities to addressing transportation. Why isn't it done more often? So what are the challenges to incorporating transportation into energy plans? Primarily, one of the main problems is that there are decentralized leverage points. With a power plant, you can just deal with the power plant owner or the utility. With a building, you can deal with the building owner, and you can convince them of the payback period, and you can go from there. Whereas for transportation, you have to get a lot of individuals to change instead of one central decision maker. And another challenge is the decentralized and frequently missing data sources. Transportation requires information from, let's say, the local Department of Transportation, the Department of Energy, the local Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Motor Vehicles, and quite often communities and states just haven't bridged the gaps that are needed to paint a picture of what path to take forward. Another challenge to incorporating transportation is that it varies so widely between regions. The end goal is different depending on population. In some populations, let's say a dense area, the end goal could be a light rail or a subway where people can easily walk to all the stations. In a more rural area, the end goal is very different. So the end goal might be trying to coordinate people to rideshare through a website. And so transportation is very tailored to the specific region. And the final reason why transportation is challenging to address is that it depends a lot on behavior change. And it's tough to get the public to make the proper changes. You need the right policies, you need the right incentives in order to get people to change their behaviors and, let's say, drive a different vehicle or telecommute or take the metro to work. So these are some of the challenges and why many communities have just focused more on electricity production and buildings rather than transportation. But in the next slide, I am going to show you how many of these challenges can be overcome. So the ways to overcome transportation hurdles are, there are many ways to overcome these hurdles, and there's a lot of ingenuity going on in the field. A good starting point is to get members of legislature, academia, and the departments of transportation, Treasury, Energy, Commerce, and Environment, all at the same table, just so they can bridge some of those gaps and kind of start to brainstorm on good solutions to inefficient transportation systems. One way that I've gotten all of these groups together is to incentivize them by offering training at something valuable. And so in one location, I offered training on all of the different tools that NREL provides to help assess what transportation technologies work in the best locations. That was pretty successful in getting a wide variety of stakeholders and decision makers at the same table. And another good step towards overcoming transportation hurdles is to coordinate a central data repository. All of those organizations listed in the top bullet point have their own data that is valuable to understanding the local transportation system, and it kind of helps you identify the leverage points as to where you can make improvements in the efficiency of the transportation system. And so it really, if you can centralize a data repository, it really empowers a lot of local entrepreneurs, local academia, local decision makers, policy makers, so that they can make their case for the transportation improvements that need to be made, and they'll have the data to support it. So that's a very good first or second step. And so when overcoming these hurdles, you need to keep a local goal in mind. And I think that sustainable transportation is the largest goal that all other transportation improvements can be working towards. And so to define sustainable transportation, I like to use the four-legged stool analogy. Sustainable transportation has to have low greenhouse gas emissions. It has to be healthy, and by healthy I mean not only improved air pollution, but also it has to have a reduced mortality rate. Our current transportation system is actually pretty bad, having everyone driving their own cars. It has pretty high mortality and morbidity rates that can really be improved, say with trains or buses, and so by healthy I mean reduced crashes, reduced air pollution. And also something that's just now starting to be addressed in transportation is to be healthy, a good transportation system shouldn't promote idleness the way our current transportation system does. Idleness is, of course, leading to our obesity epidemic and diabetes epidemic, and that is at least in part due to our transportation system, where kids that used to be, by and large, biking and walking to school every day are now being dropped off, and that's the idea behind the EPA's Safe Routes to Schools program, and they are finding many encouraging findings on making kids healthier by enabling them to walk and bike and rollerblade and skateboard to school easier. So that's the second leg. A transportation system has to be healthy. The third leg is the transportation system has to be affordable. And by affordable, I don't mean that absolutely every part of it has to be affordable. I don't mean that we have to avoid electric cars because they're more expensive. Electric cars definitely have their place in a transportation system, just the same way that that more expensive high-performance vehicles do, like sports cars. But what I mean by affordable is that it must retain affordable components. You must keep walking and biking routes open at a minimum. When we put in our interstate highway system, this was a tragedy on the affordability of transportation in many ways, because it bisected many communities and cut off walking and biking routes and forced people into their cars. And so this is something that should be kept in mind in communities, is that when they're looking at transportation projects, they should definitely keep pedestrians and bikers in mind and not cut off their easy routes within their communities. And then the final leg of the sustainable transportation stool is, of course, low petroleum use. And less oil means less vulnerability to price swings, and usually encompasses the other legs of the stool. So in each one of these communities, we take the goal which is made by the communities, which is generally written in terms of a % petroleum reduction over however many years, and that's usually reduced from a business of usual case. And so I'm going to show you the Virgin Islands as an example. They had chosen a goal of reducing their petroleum use 60% below business as usual between 2010 and 2025. It's a very ambitious goal, and so it was really daunting and kind of overwhelming to them to know how to get traction on it. And so the first step we did was to help them break down the goal into sub-goals. And so on the upper left-hand side, you can see these sub-goals were in order of the largest to the smallest reductions. The sub-goals were to reduce the miles traveled to improve the fuel economy of the vehicles in their fleet, to improve their traffic flow. The Virgin Islands had just terribly timed traffic lights, which really hurts the fuel economy of the vehicles traveling on those roads. And they had a few other opportunities to improve their traffic flow. Another subset or sub-goal is electric vehicles, and then renewable and biodiesel, and then adding 10% ethanol to all of their gasoline, as we've done in the mainland U.S. And so on that bottom right-hand side, you can see the 2025 goals that make achievement of the overall 60% reduction goal are listed here. So the sub-goal for miles reduction is to have motorized vehicles travel 20% less. The sub-goal for fuel economy improvements is that new light-duty vehicles labels would average 4 miles per gallon below the CAFE goal for a given year. The CAFE are those corporate average fuel economy standards. The traffic flow improvement sub-goal is that 20% of VMT will be converted to the highway drive cycle. The average light-duty vehicle is 35% more efficient on the highway drive cycle than it is on the city drive cycle, and so that's just some way to make this goal tangible for people to improve the drive cycle and the overall, like, how smooth traffic flow is on a given road. The electric vehicle goal was to replace 15% of all the light-duty vehicles with electric vehicles. For biodiesel, the goal is for 55% of all diesel sold to road vehicles is renewable or biodiesel. And then finally, 75% of all gasoline sold to road vehicles is supposed to be E10 in the goal. And so now that we have these sub-goals, how do we get them down into actual projects and action items? With all of these communities, we worked with as wide a variety of stakeholders as possible, and got their ideas. Every community has a lot of ideas on how the transportation system can be improved, and then NREL also provided some ideas and ran them by these stakeholders, and so we listed all of the projects. The projects are listed in the left-hand column. And then you can see in one of the middle columns, the wedge column, you can see what sub-goal they are contributing to. And then we ranked these projects according to cost, and so cost was considered the most important. The low-cost projects we wanted to do first, and then the second ranking, the second thing that we ranked them on was their overall petroleum reduction. Was there a large potential, medium, or low potential for petroleum reduction? And then the time frame. We wanted projects that could be implemented quickly on a short time frame. And then finally, the projects were ranked upon popularity as the fourth item. Projects that are popular with the community are just more likely to be enacted and more likely to be good projects. And so this is how we rank the projects, and so we could decide which ones or what order to pursue the projects in. If we had more resources for this ranking system, we could boil the cost and petroleum reduction into a dollars per gallon saved item, which would be really helpful to quantify. I encourage doing that in the future, and we're going to do it in future projects. And so going down this path of setting goals and implementing projects, we've we've developed a lot of resources to help people go down this path, and most of the resources were developed for the Clean Cities program, which I believe I'll be talking about on the next slide, but most of them are located on the Alternative Fuels Data Center. And you can just see that all of the alternative fuels are covered, and then in that upper ribbon you can see under like conserve fuel, that also covers fuel economy projects. The incentives and laws tab, I believe I will be talking about later. And so all of the resources that I'm going to be talking about in the upcoming slides can be found on the Alternative Fuels Data Center. And I had mentioned the Conserve Fuel tab on the AFDC. These are resources that help you in idle reduction projects. They help you in projects where you're enabling people to keep better maintenance of their vehicles, to improve efficiency. They guide you towards resources to improve driving behavior, to more efficient behavior, and fleet right sizing. The incentives and laws search engine is really helpful. It enables you to find innovative policies at the federal, state, and local level that have already been enacted, and they're searchable by the categories shown in the slide. You can search by the technology and fuel types. Do you want to search by biodiesel? Do you want to search by fuel economy improvements? You can search by incentive types, such as grants or tax incentives or loans or leases. You can search by law and regulation types, such as do they focus on driving or idling? Do they focus on fuel taxes? Or finally, you could focus your search on the user types. Are you wanting to make a policy that addresses vehicle owners and drivers, or big fleet purchasers and managers? And you can also search by the state if you happen to know of a particularly innovative city, say San Francisco. You can check and see what all legislation they've enacted to improve their transportation system. And so you can search by any of these means, and you can combine all four search categories to really zero in on a specific policy, and then it will bring up what states or localities have enacted legislations that fit your search, and it will bring up like the full text of the policy, along with hyperlinks that can bring you to the exact legalese of the legislation and points of contact, people that you can ask about it. And the DOE Clean Cities program is a great resource. The idea behind it is that there are almost 100 coalitions that are throughout the U.S., as shown in this map, that have a coordinator and have a lot of stakeholders whose entire mission is to reduce petroleum use in your area. So if you can see on this map that you are in a green area, then you're being covered by a Clean Cities coalition. And so I highly recommend looking up the coalition coordinator and getting some ideas and working with them on reducing petroleum use in your area. This is a well-established program. It's been active since 1993, and it offers technical consulting, peer exchange, goal tracking, tools, and other resources. Essentially, the idea behind this program is that the DOE realizes that many of the transportation energy issues are best addressed at the local level, and so it just wants to empower the people at the local level to make the best decisions for their cases, and then it also wants to aid knowledge transfer between all of the locations. And so it's been quite successful, and I really encourage you to look up your Local Clean Cities Coordinator. And so that is all I have, and here's my contact information if you want to get a hold of me with any questions. Thank you.